Hello and welcome to another episode of the Afterburners podcast. I am your host, Sam Miedemeyer. It is Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018. Bobby, it is gross outside.
It is gross. And you did the thing again where I guess that's our new thing where we're borrowing from the Daily Show where we announce the date and then I think we have to get the music if we're going to do that.
I'll see if I can purchase the rights. I'm not quite sure where Jon Stewart stands on that, but hey, at the very least, we're not making money, so we can kind of copy and paste like we're doing with our theme song, right?
Yeah, we probably have to change that in the near future.
All right, great. Well, Bobby, we got some good news. We have a new guest today. Unfortunately, Mike's not going to make it. He got stuck in customs or is being...
The Mounties heard us giving out Labatt Blue, and they pulled Mike over to question him. So he's stuck answering questions about that.
All of that bad talk, bad mouthing of the Canadian drivers is going to bite him in the butt because he isn't going to be able to make it today. But that's okay. We have somebody else from the Pacific Northwest, first timer, Mr. Pete Lawrence. Pete, you are a writer on Dynasty League football as well as Numbers Fire. Welcome to the Afterburners podcast, my friend.
Oh, thank you guys. It's a pleasure to join you today.
Outstanding. So, over here, and we're obviously in New York, and you're out in the Northwest in Washington. It's gross out right now. It's raining. We just had snow yesterday, and then it all melted. What's the weather like out in Washington? Is it nice?
It's actually sunny today. It's a little trick. It's not always raining here in the Pacific Northwest, but we like to keep that stereotype going so, fewer people come up here.
Just assume it's always raining when I hear
No, every day Pete's texting me pictures of sunshine over some nice water, just to really rub it in that I live in the city and he lives in a beautiful place.
So Pete, I got another question for you too. We had a big discussion the last couple of weeks. There's these two factions that are competing across Twitter, mainly just amongst our friends, about two TV shows, Friends and Seinfeld. I know you kind of chimed in a little bit when you're talking about some of these little replies on Twitter here and there. But I'm gonna be honest. I think I know your answer. I'll ask you in a second. But I'm gonna tell you guys. I tried to watch some Friends episodes last week or so, and I don't remember them being this bad. Monica had sex with a 17-year-old in one of the episodes. Where are you at in this epic struggle of 1990s amazing series?
I think Friends hasn't aged very well. Seinfeld has a lot of that kind of classic humor. It still carries pretty well. And I think it's improved. For a lot of us, I was younger when Seinfeld first came out, so I didn't really understand a lot of it. You just kind of laughed because probably your parents were laughing.
Yep.
So now when I rewatch it, now when I'm older, okay, I'm tracking a little bit more. And where Friends was kind of a more of a topical and really fit in with the 90s. But at the same time, I don't know what it's like to live in New York City. But I could never understand how these people afforded this huge apartment,
right?
And always had the same couch in their coffee bar. And I don't even know what most of them did for a job, but I don't imagine. I think Monica was a chef. Rachel made people clothes or something. She was a waitress for a while, and somehow they were living in this huge 2-bedroom apartment. It's bigger than anything I've had, and I've been living in the Northwest, which is definitely lower tier on the rent scale.
I think it's funny you say that because the one who had the nicest job, the paleontologist, or what was it, Ross, whatever he was.
Yeah, he was a paleontologist at the zoo, or not the zoo. That'd be really weird if you were a paleontologist at the zoo, but over at the Museum of History or something.
Yeah, it's the Museum of Natural History. He is a paleontologist there. And we were talking about this with my fiance before we got the show started. She's a big Friends fan, but we were saying, listen, it just didn't age well. She got so mad that she went in the other room. So there you go.
Well, the last thing we want to do here is start any type of civil, of non-civil, uncivil, fighting between domestic partnerships here, partnerships and future marriages. So how about we talk some football, guys? Everyone, we've got a great show for you today. Obviously, we have Pete as our guest. We have Bobby, the person who's given out advice on the reg on Twitter, and now he's going to get specialized one-on-one treatments. You got me, who's just a jabroni talking his mind off about nothing. Let's get started. We got a great show for you. We're going to talk a little bit about Brandon Cooks getting traded. Some big news. He's going over to the Rams. See how that affects Jared Goff. We're going to talk a little bit about some rookie running backs and wide receivers that should give some quarterback help this year. And finally, Bobby's got some really good sound advice for QBs outside of the top 5. Last couple weeks ago, we talked about Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. And so we'll talk about the 6 through 10, 6 through 12 QBs that are coming up this year. But before we do all that, Bobby, break down the info where we can find you. Pete, follow up with him, and then let's get ripping.
Yeah, you can find me at REKED Fantasy, and I'm now contractually required by John Bosch to say that I'm not trying to be a Twitter tough guy. It's just my initials. Get wrecked, son. Pete, over to you.
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter at @_Pete Law, and I'm writing over at Dynasty League Football and at Numberfire as well.
And guys, you can find me at the Needy One. Clearly, we are at Afterburners Podcast. Don't forget to find us on iTunes, subscribe, and
did you just say iTunes?
I'll tell you what, this beer's getting to me already.
Yeah, find us on iTunes, guys, not iTunes. But maybe we're on iTunes. I don't know.
Hey, maybe that's a new app idea. Who knows? Yeah, somebody could buy the rights to that website and make a lot of money. So we had an interesting question on Twitter come up about 3 or 4 days ago over the weekend. This came from John Michael. He's at JMikeCheck. Now, I think we're all going to be in agreement here, but we really wanted to ask Pete this because I'm sure he's not going to answer the way we think he is. But he says on Twitter that you're starting a Superflex dynasty and you have the top overall pick. Now, the stipulation is you must choose a QB with that top pick who was not drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. Pete, who is your pick, and sell us on him?
I think it obviously begins and ends with Russell Wilson, the Seahawks Super Bowl winning quarterback. Even in 2017, with just a terrible offensive line, he still came out and produced. He fits any system as far as a quarterback goes. He has the Konami code. He can run it with his legs. He can put it up in the air. Yeah, you can make an argument maybe for Dak. A few years ago, obviously the choice would have been Tom Brady, but it's 2018 now. So
just cut out, just so you know. So you're going to need to start that again. Sorry about that.
All right, no worries. All right, so I think it begins and ends with Russell Wilson, Seahawks Super Bowl winning quarterback. 2017, he pretty much was the Seahawks offense. The team had 1 rushing touchdown. Our defensive back, Justin Coleman, had more touchdowns through interceptions than we had rushing touchdowns. He doesn't need, all these fancy weapons. He can beat you. He's got the Konami code. He can run it in with his legs. He's mobile. The offensive line's already been terrible. It's not going to get worse this year. So, he lost Jimmy Graham. He lost Paul Richardson. He still got Baldwin. You got the great sleeper Nick Vanette, who's coming up. You guys are going to get used to that name. Seahawks are going to make him into something.
You're giving away my secrets, Pete.
I think I've tweeted about it enough. He's on the up. So I think the only other quarterback you could really argue is maybe Dak. It's 2018, so Brady's kind of out of it. But those are your late round superstar quarterbacks.
Yeah, and as everybody knows, I'm team Russell Wilson. Even without the stipulation, he's my dynasty QB1. I've mentioned multiple times on the podcast that 6 seasons into his career, he has the most total yardage of any quarterback in the history of the NFL. But just to play devil's advocate, I guess, because our co-host who couldn't be here, Mike, wanted to argue for Dak, let me do my best Dak encouragement. That feels gross to say as a Cowboys, or not a Cowboys fan. Wow. I was about to call myself a Cowboys fan. That is even worse. I might have to go jump off a cliff or something. Anyway.
That's deep.
Dak has been super efficient with his throws, where he doesn't get a huge amount of volume, but when he throws it, it tends to go pretty far and go for touchdowns. He's also I think he's had something like 25% of the Cowboys rushing touchdowns when he's been the quarterback. Of course, you could also say Zeke was suspended almost all of last year, so a lot of his rushing touchdowns come from that. But I can't make a convincing argument for Dak. I'm not going to lie. I just can't do it. Maybe Mike can do a better job when we have him on again next week. We can ask him to follow up, but that's the best I can do. I'm sorry, Dak Prescott. I don't think that you're better than Russell Wilson, and I never will.
Every time I looked at a quarterback that was like, oh, I could see this, he was drafted in the first round. And then obviously Russell Wilson, everyone knows. What was he, 3rd round, Pete?
3rd round.
3rd round, right? And he was number 1 last year, number 1 quarterback across pretty much every single league. I don't know. I can't make the case against Russell Wilson. I'm kind of surprised by some of these like some of the people not answering Russell Wilson. I thought I saw one earlier that somebody did say.
Did somebody say Davis Webb? Because I've heard that go around as a joke.
Well, there's an idea of like maybe Cousins. You could make the case for Garoppolo. I think Jimmy G, you could, but the thing is that Russell Wilson has already done it, and he's going to be doing it.
Wilson has done it for 6 seasons. Garoppolo's done it for 5 games. Pete, what do you think? If somebody picked Garoppolo, show us your like most raging Homer impression of how angry you'd get at that person.
You know, Garoppolo is going to be in the same division. He's also has to play the Rams twice, and that Rams defense that's probably going to be Russell Wilson's kryptonite. That's probably going to be about a 10-sack game with Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh just wrecking havoc against that porous Seahawks interior line. Hopefully, getting DJ Fluker. I'm not exactly sure how much of an improvement, but judging by that laughter from Bobby right there, I don't think it's going to be a huge step in the right direction for pass protection.
Yeah, pass protection, not so much. He's a good run blocker.
I think the biggest thing with Russell Wilson this year you're going to have to worry about is Pete Carroll's really hitting home that they want to get back to that ground and pound, that run offense. So you might have just a little bit of a drop in overall volume. But I think what you'll see is an increase in his efficiency. They're going to get back to a lot of those big play action, trying to hit him over the top. So,
well, the way they keep dropping defenders, maybe they'll be losing enough games that Russell Wilson will have to come back and pass. What do you think about that?
That's what we call the Browns move, or actually the former Blake Bortles move, but no longer the Blake Bortles move because Blake Bortles was efficient last year.
The Jaguars were so convinced about Blake Bortles, knowing into the future, the year that Russell Wilson was drafted, the Jaguars drafted a punter before Russell Wilson in the 3rd round.
You never made that case. You bring up Blake Bortles every single show. You've never made that case for him.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Rams and how the Seahawks kind of struggle against the Rams, especially over the last 3 or 4 years. Big news coming from the Rams. I almost said St. Louis, but unfortunately we know that the Los Angeles Rams. Brandon Cooks was traded to them for a 1st and a 4th rounder from the Patriots. How is this going to help out Jared Goff? Will it help out Jared Goff?
How is this any different than Sammy Watkins? I mean, it's another, vertical threat, field stretcher, kind of wide receiver. Maybe there's more time for Goff and Cooks to work together, so you get a little bit better chemistry. Goff did mess Watkins quite a bit down the field. So maybe having that few more months to work together, they work those kinks out and they get humming. But it's not a huge boost, I don't think, in Brandon Cooks' overall dynasty value. I think he's still pretty high. He went from one good offense to another, but I don't see it being this huge swing where he's going to jump up quite a few spots in any of my rankings.
So I see Pete's not coming to my defense in this Twitter argument I'm in, where everyone's jumping all over me for saying that Brandon Cooks is a better player than Sammy Watkins. I don't like that people are saying Sammy Watkins didn't succeed there last year, so Brandon Cooks isn't, because I think they're different players. I think that Cooks has always been a better route runner than Sammy. That's just my take. But I also think that, and I wrote this article on DLF, shameless self-plug, about Brandon Cooks in his 2nd year in the Patriots offense. This really screwed me. But what's interesting is I compared him to Anquan Boldin and Brandon Marshall, and both of them, after their first trade, performed worse than they had in the past, kind of like Brandon Cooks did this past year. But after their 2nd trade, they returned more to their career norms. So I think there is something to be said, and maybe I'm just making this up, hoping that it proves true because I love Brandon Cooks. But there's something to be said for you've been traded before and you're now used to the idea of you have to adapt to a new team, to a new city, learn a new offense. And yeah, it sucks. He has to learn a new offense. I'm not saying it's a good thing for him, but I see it almost as a lateral move from the Patriots last year. It is a downward spike for his value somewhat, because I thought that being year 2 in this offense, he would have gone up from last year's production. But now I see it as basically just he'll have last year's production, which is way better than Sammy, who was held to under 600 yards. If you're fighting with me at Twitter, make me a bet. I will bet you anything that Cooks has more yards. And I'll even go as far as to say that Cooks has more touchdowns than Sammy had last season. You can find me.
Sammy probably. Sammy probably already injured himself before you tweeted that out, but we're talking about the potential.
And his 8 touchdowns. So I'm saying Brandon Cooks this year will have at least 8 touchdowns in the Rams offense.
Sammy got hurt getting off the plane after he signed that giant contract. That's when he got hurt. Pete, are you a Cooks or a Watkins guy? If we're gonna do this debate, who is it, Cooks or Watkins?
I'm Sammy Watkins. I still think he's that elite talent. Coming out of Clemson, he lit up the combine. I have an addiction to size, speed, freak athletes and the Spark score. I've already admitted this. You heard me on the Dynasty Life podcast. I managed to quit Christine Michael finally, although, of course, he gets re-signed by the Colts. But I'm just lucky that Dorial Green Beckham is still out of the league. So I'm not chasing after that anymore.
Yeah.
Although we just did the DLF staff league, and, of course, Brashard Perriman is sitting around. So I got to chase that freak speed athlete.
Yeah, I saw that there too, and I went, nope, not falling for that trap. DGB really taught me my lesson. And that's also where I'm like, okay, I gave DGB like 3 opportunities. And that's the thing with Sammy.
I think that's more than the NFL gave him. So,
yeah, if you told me last season that Sammy would be on a healthy Rams offense, Sammy would be healthy on a Rams offense that was the top scoring offense in the entire NFL, and he couldn't find a way to be a wide receiver 2 in fantasy, I would have been shocked. But now he's done that. He hasn't been able to be healthy pretty much ever. I'm done. I am tapped out on Sammy. If you still want to believe in Sammy, you can. I'm not. I know it seems like I thought that the trend might have been to not believe in Sammy, but it seems like I'm dying on this hill, which is a weird hill to die on when it's a dude's like 3rd or 4th opportunity and he just hasn't been the guy.
So does that mean it's better for Goff then? Is he going to have better numbers?
I think it's better for Goff. So here's the thing. Goff didn't have a good deep ball accuracy. That's like the first thing that people brought up as soon as Brandon Cooks was traded. You also have to remember that in year 1, Goff was terrible. And then he showed improvement and he played much better in year 2. So the idea of, in year 2, he didn't have good deep ball accuracy. In year 1, he didn't have good anything, and he improved upon all of that. So to say that a young guy can improve going into year 3 on his deep ball accuracy, or the fact that he has one of the best deep threats in the game now to help him with his timing, it just seems weird to me. So, I don't know that's a huge improvement, but I had Goff already as my Dynasty QB 5 overall, which I realize is very, very hot and high. But Cooks going there just makes me feel more confident that that's where he belongs.
Pete, let me throw a wrench here for you real quick. Let me ask you a question. Now, obviously, the Patriots, they get two draft picks, a 1st and 4th, but they're losing a 1,000-yard receiver who also caught 7 balls. Is this going to hurt Tom Brady at all, or is he still Tom Brady?
It's still Tom Brady. Yeah. Tom Brady's going to make it happen to any wide receiver, and especially now that it's, of course, what's going to happen is the Patriots are somehow going to trade for Odell to really spite Bobby in the face, and I'm sure Dynasty Frank just his ears just twitched a little too. Because I think I logged on Twitter right after the trade, and it's the Patriots got 2 firsts. They're trading for Odell now.
Oh, Bobby, Giants getting rid of OD.
Yeah, it's not happening.
And then they're going to draft Quentin Nelson, and then they'll draft Josh Allen later in the 1st probably, or Mason Rudolph or something
They'll pass Rosen and they'll get Saquon.
Honestly, if that were to happen, I would just become a Patriots fan. I don't even care. At that point, I'd be like, all right, you guys got Rosen, you have Odell. I am now on your team. Go Pats.
Just some final numbers between the two. Sammy Watkins, 70 targets, 39 catches. Brandon Cooks, 114 targets, 65 catches. Obviously, he had more yards. Let's move on to our next topic. Now, this is going to bring kind of up on Pete's wheelhouse again. I'll just give it some context. He recently wrote an article, but before that, let's go into what we're talking about here. We've seen, especially this year, in 2017, a lot of rookie running backs come in and they get a lot of points and they help out quarterbacks basically immediately. I mean, Alvin Kamara, Kamir Hunt, obviously.
Leonard Fournette.
Blake
Bortles, most efficient season again.
Christian McCarthy, easy with the Bortles love here. Christian McCaffrey, too. He had some nice numbers in PPR leagues. So, now, you came up with an interesting article on, I believe it was on Dynasty League Football, correct, Pete?
That's affirmative, yep.
So, and we thought it was interesting, and we wanted to hear your take on this. So if you can expand on it a little bit more, go for it. is there a certain what type of running back? I mean, there's a lot of good running backs that are coming out in this draft, but you have one name in particular that you think it can provide some immediate help. Who is that?
So I took a look at Miami's running back, Mark Walton. He's about 5'10", right around 205 pounds. One of the things that I noticed when I'm watching tape on him is the difference in the BMI between, say, his 205 and looking at, that consensus high pick of Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is incredibly lean. Mark Walton's a little more rocked up. He's got a little more body weight to him. He's got great hands. I put a couple of tweets out there about him, and you can watch him when he's catching. He watches the ball in really well. He makes sure that he's got, that good control of it, tucks it away. He's going to be a great satellite back with a little bit of upside. If he can, he goes to a team where the main back goes down and he can fill in for a couple weeks. I don't think he's that, bell cow back who's going to be taking all the carries, but as a complementary role, someone who's catching out of the backfield, it's going to be a great option for him. And you're going to be able to get a steal later in the draft. He was injured all of 2017. So he kind of fell out of favor. He kind of dropped off as far as anybody remembering him. He had a big 2016. So that's a guy who I think is going to kind of slip into the later rounds. And he also really underwhelmed at the combine, but he had a big pro day where he showed kind of what you saw on tape.
So if you were to say, this could be a two-part question, or maybe it's the same answer. One, where do you think he lands? And two, what's ideal for him? Where's his ideal spot?
Oh, that's a tough one. If I'm thinking his ideal spot, I want him going somewhere where they have that main running back. Say, he comes in and spells somebody. This might seem kind of a strange one, but say he goes to Arizona later round. He's coming in behind David Johnson. They want to give David Johnson a little bit of rest because they ran him into the ground the year before, 2 years prior to this. He was injured last season, kind of a freak injury. It wasn't like a soft tissue thing. And it's not sitting here calling him injury prone, but you rest David Johnson for a few downs. You can use Mark Walton as far as a dump off, in the passing game or give him a couple carries. And I think that'd be great for him. A lot of the other spots have kind of already been filled in. I thought he would have been really nice going to the Titans, but Dion Lewis is already there. So anywhere where they have that main bell cow back, and he can come in as the complementary piece and just kind of spell that main guy.
To tie it back to quarterbacks, so you think that would help Sam Bradford from a fantasy perspective?
Absolutely.
Knees hold up?
Yep. So that's something, I think it's Larry Fitzgerald and I don't know who else is on that. Ricky Seals-Jones, there, that tight end. And that's about it as far as what I can name off for the Cardinals offense right now.
Brown went to the Ravens.
Yeah, Brown to the Ravens, and I think the other Brown went to the Seahawks.
JJ Nelson is still there. I know DHH, I think it's _Adam, really likes JJ Nelson, but I'm not as big on JJ Nelson as he is.
I think it's DFF's Travis. He is huge on JJ Nelson after he came through big on like a 1 week play for him.
Yeah, there you go. It's always the one big play on my team, and suddenly this guy is my sleeper.
Yep.
Sam, who's your guy for running backs, and where do you want them to land, and how can they help quarterbacks?
Well, I was more prepared for the wide receiver question that you were going to give me,
which is why I asked you.
I like Geis out of LSU or Nick Chubb to either land either of those guys. I'm a big SEC guy, obviously. And the Lions, I know they were talking about flirting with the first pick to get Saquon Barkley. They really don't need him. I think if the Lions can take him, I think the Lions are the 20th pick, something like that.
I have no idea off the top of my head.
Now, granted, Stafford doesn't really need any help. He's going to be basically a top 7, top 8 quarterback over the next 2 or 3 years, just so that he has the volume. But he does just give him that extra target, especially out of the backfield, or at the same time, just make him more efficient.
Considering I just took Theo Riddick in our DLF dispersal as my RB2, I'm not sure how I feel about this.
I mean, it makes sense though, right? I don't know. I'm just big on these SEC guys that I like Chubb and Geis.
I know it makes sense. I just hope that Theo Riddick doesn't lose his job.
Riddick's he's not a bad receiving back. The problem is he's not going to get the bulk of the carries.
No, he's not.
So I would say, just off the top of my head, that would probably be my pick. And granted, that's not really any type of great stats or numbers that are involved, but I think that just makes sense from when you see like how these GMs like think about how to draft. I think it just makes sense. Pete, let me ask you a question real quick. It's not really has to do with quarterbacks, but could you see people that are owning Johnson to also kind of handcuff and grab Walton just to be safe in a draft this year?
Absolutely. He's going to be cheap enough where you're not going to have to overpay for him to be at JJ Zachariason, big time against, handcuffing your stud player, mostly because there's not the volume isn't there. And really the drop off in talent is so significant. It's not like David Johnson's going to get hurt and then Mark Walton's going to come in and give you 1,600 yards and 17 touchdowns and add in 80 receptions and another 900 yards receiving. He's going to come in there and he's probably also going to split time with another running back. So there's a huge difference. We'd like to think that, we handcuff somebody, you handcuff Connor to Le'Veon Bell. And that if Bell went down, Connor is going to suddenly become this 30 carry a game, 10 target running back. And it's not going to happen. They're going to spell they're going to spell Connor with somebody else. It's not the same talent level.
You're really, coming after both our fandoms. First you come after Odell, and then you come after Bell. Yeah.
But I own Connor in my league, so I'm good with
that. I think Connor's a great guy to own. Just especially if like that feel good story. The dude overcame cancer like twice. I think he like broke his leg. I mean, the dude is a stud. So he's one of those fun guys to own. I think I don't own him anywhere because he got picked just a little bit before any spot I was. But same thing like Juju, just having that just a fun player to own on your bench, a good story. So,
Bobby, we know you're excited for the Giants to take Barkley at number 2. Oh no, you're not.
It's Quentin Nelson.
However, I do think I'll talk about Barkley briefly. I do think that the Colts will likely take Barkley if he falls there. If not, the Bucks. And Barkley, obviously, we say he's a generational talent. I don't like the word generational because it's supposed to mean once in a generation, but we use it every class. But I'm going to say that he's a very, very good talent. And if he were to land in either of those spots, as we know, Winston had a very down season last year. So having someone take the load off him a bit where he can be more selective with his throws, kind of like Portals this year, would be helpful. Same idea with Andrew Luck coming back, at least hopefully. I'm a huge Luck fanboy, so I hope Luck is back. He's coming back. He'll have, a bum shoulder probably, so you don't want him throwing 600 times like he does typically in his career. However, if you can take some of that off by having Barkley just run for, I don't know, let's say 200 carries. I'm making this up. I think that'd be like the most a rookie has ever done. But that would take some of the attention off Luck and make it a bit easier for him to transition back into being in the NFL. So Barkley is one I had in mind. Another one that I really liked, although I'm not sure on the landing spot. This is a shout out to Pete and I's boy, DFF Shane, who told me about Royce Freeman.
And then I like him. I don't dislike him.
Yeah, you just don't talk to him as much. That's fine. Royce Freeman was a guy that I was initially kind of low on. But after Shane was like, no, you're way too low on this guy, I went back, watched some more game film of him, really did some research and think that he could be a true 3-down back. And because of that, I think he'd be able to help a quarterback from a fantasy perspective, not just by making them more efficient, by taking some of the load off, but also because he can catch passes out of the backfield and take some of those screens for touchdowns.
So this draft, I think what's really unique about this draft is it's really, especially if, obviously we do super flex 2 quarterbacks. There's going to be a lot of quarterbacks taken in the first round, first like 6, 7 picks, 8 picks. In the second round, I think we're going to see a lot of these running backs being taken. And also we're going to see some good wide receivers that are going to be taken as well. There's just a lot of really good value. It's a really deep and running back and wide receiver league, just not necessarily top heavy. So Pete, is there anybody that's a wideout that, you got your eye on, or maybe there's somebody that you could see a really good fit that'll improve a quarterback in the landing spot at all? Is there any wideout that has your eye in the first or second round?
First or second round in this, if I'm in my fantasy draft and I'm going to be, my main thing this year is I'm going to be targeting running backs heavy. Honestly, if I have a second round pick, probably what I'm going to look to do is trade it, see if I can get a 2019 first. The 2019 first, they're the class for 2019 as far as wideouts, and Keel Harry, a bunch of others, really talented group, a lot more of your prototypical number one wide receivers. Guys that I might target who could be first or second. I'm a big fan of Dante Pettis. I'm not really sure where he's going to go. He adds that dynamic of being a return man, set records as far as returns in college. I also really enjoy what DJ Chark can do. Another guy who's 6'3", about 215 pounds, big, 4'3", fast speed. Equinemius St. Brown is another talent. And I think a guy who might surprise us with how high he goes in the NFL draft could be Antonio Callaway, depending on how teams feel after all of his off-field problems. But he is electric quick on the field, just dominates against man coverage.
I like that, though. I like that strategy of kind of doubling down on running backs. It's a very deep – there's not necessarily – there's like one guy at the top, right? But then there's a lot of guys that could really go kind of anywhere that could make an impact long-term for your teams. As I said before, I'm a big SEC guy. I like Ridley out of Alabama. I think he's got great vision, great hands. The one thing I really, really am kind of worried about, though, is if he lands in Baltimore – they're not going to know how the hell to use him because Joe Flacco is just one of those guys. Now, we talked a lot last week about Joe Flacco and how you can get a lot of value from him just by trading to get a third-round pick and then maybe move that third-round pick for a second-round pick, or maybe a quarterback gets injured. You have Joe Flacco. That's you can kind of get some extra value out of a trade there if somebody needs a quarterback. But I would just be so worried that they wouldn't know how to use him. I think one thing I really would like to see is the Washington Redskins taking Ridley. I'm not a Redskins fan. I hate the Redskins. All my friends who listen know that I hate the Redskins. They don't have any weapons. And if they get Ridley, I'm not saying that Ridley's going to completely tear the roof off, but it's another body out there that somebody's going to have to cover. And we completely trashed Alex Smith last week in terms of what quarterbacks are going to come back from being like a top 6, top 12, basically QB1, who's going to drop out, and we were all unanimous about Alex Smith. I think if the Redskins can draft Ridley at their spot, I honestly think maybe Alex Smith doesn't drop out of a QB1. What do you think about that? Is that possible?
It's the issue is going to be, is Alex Smith still going to push the ball downfield? Whatever wide receiver goes in there, they're also going to have to compete a little bit for targets. Josh Doxson, he is a gifted athlete. The question is he tough enough to actually stay on the field? Yeah. There's kind of, rumors that he's a little bit soft. He doesn't play through some of these injuries. So big thing for that is just going to be, are they going to be able to make the field over there?
We also, one more thing, anything to add there, Bobby?
I don't think Alex Smith is going to repeat. I'm sorry, Sal at 2 QBs. I know you love Alex Smith, but he'll still be a solid QB2 option. In regards, and we're talking about wide receivers right now that are going to help out their quarterbacks, right? Yeah. So DJ Moore is the top of the class for me. I know everybody's been talking about that. However, I want to talk about the second guy in my top of the class, which is James Washington. If you read my superhero articles at 2QB, you would know that I thought that James Washington made Mason Rudolph and not vice versa. So when I think of wide receivers who are going to come in and help their quarterback score points, it's James Washington. And let's say James Washington were to go to San Francisco, for example, that would be absolute fire. Jimmy Garoppolo would be an easy QB1 in my opinion. And he probably is already a QB1 if you look really carefully. But if you were to get James Washington, I'd be all aboard the Jimmy GQ hype train.
OK State does a really good job.
Or sorry, hype boat. I'm sorry.
Hype boat. It's been nice. Nick Chubb, in these past couple of weeks, there's been more and more Nick Chubb love coming around. So the Nick Chubb hype boat is gaining steam. We're, adding on more passengers, and we're just traveling upriver.
Yeah. If you don't know, Sam, on this podcast, we use hype boat because you can then use the GIF. I'm on a boat from the Lonely Island, and
I find it ironic that we're picking up passengers and it's picking up steam. So we're not only a hype boat in the 1800s, apparently.
We're a steamboat.
But we're on the Mississippi or Columbia River, not because that's where they had all the steamboats.
Yeah,
This is big paddle boats just going up, just clicking along.
But you just mentioned Mason Rudolph, right? And OK State does a really good job of pumping out like wide receivers, like good wide receivers.
Yeah.
Mason Rudolph is, for all intents and purposes, kind of regarded as like the number 6 quarterback coming out of the draft this year. Just from everything.
Some people have him as a 5. They just hate Josh Allen that much.
True. So let's say he's a top 6, almost consensus top 6.
Yeah, that's accurate.
The one thing that worries me about Rudolph is his accuracy when he's not throwing to Washington. so it's like maybe it's accuracy altogether. We had a big quarterback debate, Pete, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was obviously on Team Josh Allen. I got trashed all across social media and here. Outside of the top 5, we're going to go Allen, Lamar Jackson. Who else we got? Rosen, Darnold, and who's the final one?
That's it. And we all said 5.
Oh, okay. Great. Okay. Is there anybody on your list that you could see having some value in a super flex or 2 QB dynasty league?
It's kind of the long play. I'm still a fan of Luke Falk from just about 2 years ago. Was a really accurate quarterback. Unfortunately, he regressed big time. He, sadly, he took a lot of hits. I think he had quite a few concussions. So that's going to be, his medical is going to be one big worry. But can he get back to where he was with that, ability to put the ball on his receivers, give him, room to run? Maybe Laletta, I think I'm pronouncing it right. I obviously haven't watched anything from him because he's
if you mispronounced it, that's what we do on this podcast.
Yeah. Just throw out a name and just assume people know it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Kyle Laletta, I haven't watched a lot about him, but he's gained kind of a lot of steam.
You don't watch a lot of Richmond Spiders games? That's a shock.
Yeah, they're not traveling over to the Pacific Northwest, so they're not getting a lot of airtime.
Yeah, they definitely are on ESPN 8, the Ocho.
Falk's to your credit, Pete. Falk is a very accurate thrower, and if you're an accurate thrower, you can definitely do well at some point in your NFL career. Bobby, anybody you like?
So I was going to mention Kyle Laletta, or however we decided to pronounce it, as someone that I find interesting. I don't think he's going to start right away by any means. I don't even think that he'll necessarily start in 2 years, but maybe 3 years down the line after he's had some time to develop behind one of these older QBs. What would be very interesting, I know there's this talk on Twitter now of the Patriots somehow trying to get Josh Rosen, even though they have an end of the draft pick in the first round. So I have no idea how they pull that off. But if they were,
it'll be part of that package where they send their 2 first, they get Odell Beckham and the second. Isn't that what I think? That's what Twitter had going on. Maybe they might throw in like a 2019 first just to balance it out.
Anyway, if they were to draft Laletta and stick him behind Brady for a few seasons, that would make him very interesting to me. Just because if you look around the league, almost half of the starters are Brady's former backups, or people who have started in the past 3 seasons are Brady's former backups. So Brady's backups are someone to pay attention to because they get to learn from Tom Brady. They get coached by Bill Belichick. And as much as it pains all of us to say, the Patriots just know how to take players and turn them into winning players.
This does seem like a Nick Laletta to the Patriots type of thing.
You mean like Kyle Laletta?
What did I say, Nick?
Nick.
I was still thinking Nick
Does he have a brother?
I was still thinking of Nick Chubb. I'm sorry. Kyle Laletta to the Patriots type of feel. Can you get behind that, Pete?
I think that would be perfect. And that kind of just fits in exactly what the Patriots would do. They'd snag that guy. I mean, just kind of the same thing as Jimmy Garoppolo.
They'll snag him for like a 3rd or 4th and then flip him for a 2nd in like a season.
Yeah.
Then
draft him and then flip him for value. It sounds like Tom Brady's maybe might retire within the next 5 years.
A bionic arm and playing until years old.
So after they trade Laletta, and then Belichick will be super pissed by that one too, and say, "Oh, I wanted to trade Brady all along." Is that what's going to happen?
Probably.
I think what will happen is they trade Laletta, and then Brady gets his arm. First, he gets one arm done, where it's like, all right, this is my bionic arm. Then he realizes that the other arm just isn't quite feeling up to par. So he gets that arm done. And by the year 2050, we're just watching full out cyborg Tom Brady dominate the league.
You sound like that guy from what's the Around the Horn show, where all he talks about is like robots being officials. He's like, robots are going to be in sports. He writes here in New York. I forget his name.
Well, I'm just saying eventually I could see by the year, maybe not 2050, but like 2080, if we're still playing football, we could easily have like Cyborg Football League.
I will be long gone by then, my friend. Long gone. And that's a fact. Guys, as this was
Unless
fun,
you're a cyborg.
Yeah. I'm going to put that in my will, actually, be made into a cyborg.
Yeah, there you go.
Like like a head from Futurama. Like I'll just be showing up as a head, and that'll be me.
Yeah. The world of tomorrow. Okay, we're getting way off topic.
All right, guys, this was fun. I really enjoyed having you, Pete. We were talking with Pete Law at _Pete Law for those that want to follow him. Now, Pete, I don't know how often you listen to the show, but we have a nice ritual at the end where we have to give our afterburns of the week. So basically, it doesn't have to be football related, though during the season it kind of is football related. We usually burn someone that has wronged us. Now, this could be
something. It doesn't have to be a person.
or something. Obviously it started with cities like Cleveland and what was the other one? Philadelphia, maybe.
No, it wasn't. Oh man,
It's not important. Detroit. I think it was Detroit.
it was. And you know what? That's another burn to Detroit. We didn't even remember we burned you, Detroit.
to Mike. Did you want to take over? You want us to start so you can get a feel on how we do this?
You know, if I have one burn right now, as a homeowner, my burn would have to go to my septic system, which no joke crapped out on me this year.
Oh,
So I get the opportunity to spend a couple $1,000s to have it redone. So nothing better than spending money on literally poop.
did you have to like? Did they take out like the long tube or whatever, and so it's like kind of dragging all across? Just like my
Yep, they did. They sucked it once, so they cleaned everything out of there, and now we got to redo a bunch of it and redo the drain field. So there's nothing more exciting than dropping thousands of dollars on your waste system.
burn to Pete's septic system. Maybe you had too much Taco Bell, and that was the problem, or was it just...
I wish it was something at least worthwhile like that. So.
Bob, you got a burn?
You go first.
You want me to?
I'm still thinking about mine.
Yeah. You've had all day to prepare for the show, and you're still thinking?
Yeah. Well, I had one, and then I completely forgot it. So
maybe Giants Twitter and their urge to trade Odell Beckham for those two first.
Yeah, that'd be too easy. For first one, and then maybe we'll come back to me if I come up with another. Just because the Patriots got 2 picks and the Giants are looking for 2 firsts, supposedly for Odell, does not mean that the Patriots are trading for Odell. And I know most people who say that are just trolling, and I'm trying not to be as easily manipulated by trolling. It's been a rough season for us Giants fans. We signed Jonathan Stewart, okay? You don't have to come at us more. We already signed Jonathan Stewart, who I also had to draft. And it's disgusting. And I threw up in my mouth when I did it.
Little burp.
So, yeah, I guess actually that just turned into a burn of Jonathan Stewart.
Rip, thought out Jonathan Stewart burn ever. So mine is actually going to be to 2017 Sam. Last summer. I already knows what I'm going to say. I've been enjoying the single life, not so much lately, but definitely last summer I've been enjoying the single life, freshly new into NYC, and I met a girl, hooked up with her, and then I kind of ghosted her. About 2 days later, I just stopped talking to her. So fast forward to today, April 18, in my job hunt for the next career move that I want to make, I got an email from a girl with the exact same name. Saying that she's the office manager at a company, and her boss wants to talk to me. Find out, checking the cell phone, it was her. So now I have to go through this girl to get a job after I ghosted her last year, and we're going to find out o'clock on Thursday what that's all about. So that's my burn to 2017, Sam. You really didn't think about the future at all.
Oh, wait, I do have another one. I just remembered what it was. Since we've gotten into appropriate that we have at least one of these per show. So, as many of you on Twitter know, I've been listening to Moana soundtrack recently in my head, and it's great. Lin-Manuel Miranda is a genius. I said that Moana...
I wrote Hamilton.
Yeah. I said that Moana is better than Frozen And supposedly that's a very hot take, and a lot of people are on Team Frozen. But one is a not so great story with okay songs, but not the best songs. And the other one is by the guy who wrote Hamilton. It involves mythology, and it has the song You're Welcome in it. I mean, is there really a comparison here? Pete, you have children. Do your children like Moana better or Frozen better?
I think even my daughter might go. She's 4. She has her Elsa blanket, and she's got Elsa and Anna. So she probably might even go Moana. She likes to sing the songs as well. She does it really well. She gets up, she belts out, I am Moana. So I think even they might go Moana as well.
So you've heard it here. Moana's better than Frozen. Debate settled.
Did you fill out that bracket, that Disney Pixar bracket, Pete? Did you know we're talking about the thing that like went viral?
I did see it. I didn't fill it out though. I didn't want to be a hot take and say that Lion King wasn't number 1. So
I think it did. I think it ultimately did win.
I don't know.
A lot, right? It was the overall number 1.
I think Lion King took it overall.
It was. We had a hot take on that last week. But it sounds like if your daughter filled it out, she would have gone with Moana.
Depending on what movie she watches that day. Right now, she's all about. She caught me watching Guardians of the Galaxy, and I thought about it, and I was like, "Well, this isn't too bad." She doesn't really understand some of the language things, and so she's actually big time in Guardians of the Galaxy. So usually, when she says goodbye to me in the morning, she calls me Taserface and chuckles at it and runs out the door.
So what you're saying is she's very "What have you done for me lately?" So like.
My daughter is absolutely "What have you done for me?"
She had JJ Nelson on her team, and JJ Nelson scored a touchdown. She'd be like, JJ Nelson is the GOAT.
Greatest. We're number 1 overall.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun, Pete. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Taserface. Really enjoyed having you. You want to come back sometime soon?
Always, man. Whenever you guys need a spot, just let me know.
Yeah, we definitely will, guys. That was the great Pete Lawrence. You can follow him at _Pete Law. He's writing over at DL Dynasty League Football, which is at DL Football. You can also find him at Number Fire. Recent article, rookie profile, Mark Walton, running back Miami. Check it out. I'll give you some great advice. I'm with Bobby, obviously, at Rec Fantasy. Don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Afterburners Pod. You can find me at The Needy One, also Podbean and Stitcher. Oh, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Have a great rest of the week.
Keep it classy, Fantasy Twitter. Until next time.